Batman Caped Crusader, the newest iteration for The Dark Knight in animation. Now, this is a show that has been brought to us by the original creator, Bruce Timm, of the Batman animated series from the 90s. However, the biggest difference between that show and this show is obviously the time period in which it takes place. This is a more 40s, 50s vibe, rather than about the 90s, which is when the original animated series does take place. Now, the other big difference between this show and Batman the Animated Series is actually the entire reason this show was originally conceptualized. Now, although Batman the Animated Series did often give us some pretty dark storylines and even gave us some character deaths, they were still limited in how much they were able to show and how dark they were able to get with the stories that they told. However, this show does not have any of those type of stipulations or boundaries that they can't push through, because this is a show that is being brought to us by Amazon Prime. So, if any of you know superhero shows on Amazon, they don't really have any boundaries, so nothing is off limits, which is really cool when giving us a Batman series, especially in animation. The possibilities are truly endless. And that's why on this channel, I definitely wanted to break down Batman Caped Crusader, not only because of what it could mean going forward and the cool comparisons that we could have between Batman the Animated Series and Batman Caped Crusader, but also because this series was greenlit for a season 2 that is being brought to us by 2026. Now, as for an exact release date, we do not have that yet. However, once we do, I certainly will let all of you know. That being said, I want to get into the topic of today's video because just a little bit ago, I did watch the very first episode of Season 1, Batman Caped Crusader, and that's why today we are talking Batman Caped Crusader, Season 1, Episode 1, breakdown and review. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Alright, Batman Caped Crusader, Season 1, Episode 1. So first and foremost, I do have a couple of critiques right off the bat, not so much for the episode itself, but just for the series. So firstly, I'm not a huge fan of period piece projects. However, I love how they take advantage of absolutely every chance and opportunity that gives them in this series. And what I mean by that is a lot of times with the advancement of technology, it does become hard to make Batman a justifiable character and how to make him an ambiguous character going between Batman and Bruce Wayne. Well, couldn't people just track him with satellites, or wouldn't they use facial recognition or a voice recognition type of thing? You don't have to deal with any of that in this series. And also, there are a lot of other aspects, like this being able to be a more noir type series, not having to rely on a lot of the technological advancements that we have today. So they really can dive more deeply into that aspect of Batman, of him being the world's greatest detective. And I really, really do like that, and I like how this world is set up in that way, and even right in the first episode, they do give that to us. The other main critique that I do have is with the Batsuit. Again, I know everyone to each their own, they have their own opinion, but for me, the gloves. What are we doing? Give him some actual gauntlets. I really like the side spikes that have been a really big mainstay for Batman, especially from, I would say, probably late 90s up until now. I can only think of 1 to 2 animated projects that we've had that give him just gloves. To me, it just looks silly. Again, I do acknowledge that it is taking place in the 40s or 50s. However, you can definitely have something that looks better, at least a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, and also serves a better function. Because again, he's not blocking a sword or anything like that with what he has now. Again, that could be something that they introduce later on, and if they do, I will stand corrected, and I would actually like that because it would show us a progression of Batman. However, for right now, it is a critique because it's something that if they don't fix it, it will probably really bother me. That being said, getting into the episode, we are introduced to Rupert Thorne and the Penguin. Now, one of the biggest differences between this series already is they decide to make the Penguin a female in this show, which I don't inherently have a problem with a female character being a mainstay. What I have a problem with is the justification Bruce Timm gave. He said, and I quote, "The reason we changed the Penguin is because Batman does not have enough female villain representation." And to that, I would say Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, the Phantasm, Duella Dent, Copperhead in many iterations, Roxy Rocket, Baby Doll. Again, that was just to list off a few. And I didn't even get into absolutely all of them. That can just give you all an idea of how many female characters we do have. And the fact that they just decided to change one of Batman's most iconic villains to a female for no reason other than to give more representation to females really doesn't make sense to me. Again, if you want to do that, have other characters be in it. Instead of putting Penguin in it, give us Lady Shiva, a character who is barely in anything, and a character who literally can go toe-to-toe with Batman. I love Lady Shiva. I want her in more projects. She is someone who not only can go toe-to-toe with Batman, but oftentimes from a pure martial arts standpoint, she's actually better and more technically sound than Batman, and has even defeated him on multiple occasions. I wish we got someone like that, or even Talia al Ghul. Again, there are so many female characters, female villains specifically, that we could have had, and instead they changed the Penguin. And in my opinion, I'm not a huge fan of how they categorize the Penguin. In this, they make her as if she's some type of mother figure, and her gang is essentially her children. That's just a really weird concept to me. Again, I would prefer Lady Shiva, I would prefer Poison Ivy, Killer Frost, so many characters we could have had instead of this. To me, it just made me really dislike this character of the Penguin, and the characterization they decided to give this character. However, I will say there are some other really cool things, like the change to Barbara Gordon. I don't particularly mind. She traditionally is part of the police force and eventually becomes commissioner. However, in this, at least for the time being, she is a defense attorney, fighting for the rights of people who don't have the power or ability or the money to fight for themselves. She takes the more long shot chances. In her very first appearance in court, we do see her going toe to toe with the district attorney and the person running for mayor, Harvey Dent. And even Harvey Dent says, like, hey, this is a losing battle. We offered a plea deal. This is going to be cut and dry. And she still doesn't back down. She's still fighting for the little guy. And I really, really like that about her character. I feel like she's going to be a character that I really like in this universe, especially as far as from the end of episode 1. If that continues, she's probably going to be one of my favorite characters in this entire series. That being said, we get a little bit from Commissioner Gordon. However, it does seem like this is more towards the beginning of Batman, so he is more so just a legend until Barbara does confirm that to Commissioner Gordon. So we don't have any type of typical interaction between Batman and Gordon as of yet. However, you can definitely tell they are going to set that up. But that being said, in my opinion, they may actually have Barbara Gordon serve that purpose and maybe be a go-between Commissioner Gordon and Batman, at least in the beginning. That's what it kind of hinted at to me, especially with the little head nod that Batman did give to Barbara. That could be a really cool twist, and one of the few twists that this show does offer that I actually really, really like. Again, we traditionally see Batman teaming up with Gordon. However, Batman teaming up with Barbara in this way would be really, really cool, especially if it does lead to the three of them collaborating and working together. That being said, the animation is not bad at all. It looks really good. The fight scenes were really cool. It gave us a unique fighting style for Batman. He doesn't rely as much on technology. As I said before, this series does take place in the 40s or 50s, so the technology is a bit more limited. But that gives us a greater ability to have more hand-to-hand combat fights, which was really cool, especially at the end where he did fight the Penguin's men and then did fight the Penguin. That was really cool when he broke Penguin's umbrella sword, and then even the Penguin getting the umbrella caught still managed to fire off that cannon. Was really cool and gave some points, in my opinion, to Penguin for how smart she really is in this show. Because she's not just going for that instant victory, that instant kill. She knew that she was going to lose the battle, but she could at least take something away from them, which was firing a missile that did indeed blow up police headquarters, or at least one of them. One of the other really interesting things is this series is definitely going to dive into the corruption of Gotham, more specifically the corruption within the police force. One of which is going to be Harvey Bullock. We did get that revealed that he is in the pocket of the Penguin and potentially Rupert Thorne. Now, as far as Rupert Thorne, we don't really have much about him. However, now that the Penguin has been taken down as of the end of episode 1, Rupert Thorne is going to be a more prominent villain, and as Alfred said, the Penguin was more so just taking territory away from Rupert Thorne and halting his advancement at conquering Gotham, at least conquering the underworld and the crime world. But now that the Penguin is out of the picture, at least as of now, Rupert Thorne does have full reign to take over Gotham. Now, one of the other things that I do like is how they present Bruce Wayne. They do show us him as more of a party boy and a real separation from Batman, which I really do enjoy. That's something similar to Batman the Animated Series. The only critique I will say as far as that, I wish they changed the voice between Batman and Bruce Wayne, which they did do in the original animated series, and they did end up going away from that in the New Adventures of Batman to show he stopped caring and to show that he was becoming darker and more brutal, and he felt less of a need to differentiate between Batman and Bruce Wayne. Whereas in this, having it be a much earlier version of Batman, I wish he would have that thought of, hey, I really do need to differentiate these two people to make sure no one even suspects or has any reason to suspect that Bruce Wayne and Batman could be one and the same. However, aside from that, I do enjoy how they characterize and portray Bruce Wayne. He tells that joke to Barbara on the boat. She doesn't acknowledge it at all, and then two women come up to him. He tells the same exact joke, and they absolutely eat it up. Again, this is going into that billionaire playboy persona that he does want the public to believe he has. So that part of it, I really, really do like. One of the other things that I am not a fan of, why the hell did Batman call Alfred Pennyworth? It just, to me, felt very out of place. I like it when Batman and Alfred are very close. They are essentially father and son. He is his surrogate father. So the fact that he decided to address him by his last name, to me, made me, right in that moment, feel very disconnected and feel like for some reason these two characters aren't that close. Now again, that was the only instance of this occurring. It only happened one time. So if going forward they never do it again and it was just for whatever reason one thing they decided to throw in there, fine, I will throw my hands up, I will stand corrected. And I hope that's the case because again, the dynamic between Bruce Wayne and Alfred is one of my favorites in DC. I love the character of Alfred. He's probably my favorite non-superhero in all of DC, aside from obviously villains, superheroes, all that. But I absolutely love Alfred. That being said, that is pretty much all I have for this first episode review. All in all, I would say that it is pretty enjoyable, and next week I will be reviewing the second episode. And as long as this keeps up, I will say I would rate this show pretty highly. Now, would I put it in the same realm as Batman the Animated Series? If it continues how it is right now, probably not. However, if it does introduce some of the characters that I mentioned in the beginning of this video, or maybe even a Deathstroke, something like that, then yes, absolutely, it could start to rival Batman the Animated Series. However, that is definitely multiple seasons away, so for right now, I will just say that I am really, really enjoying it, and I do highly recommend it to any of you out there who have not seen it as of yet. But let me know what all of you think. If you've seen the show, what did you think of the first episode? Did you have an issue about how they characterized Penguin? Or maybe not even that, but their justification for why they did it? Or would you just rather they included different female villains? Because again, I want Lady Shiva in this show or in any Batman project more than I want probably any character aside from Deathstroke. Let me know what all of you guys think down in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.